quick announcement before we begin. Later on this week or next, I'm going to be doing some live streaming with some people. There's going to be some live streaming happening tonight as well on a different topic, but more specifically, I want to get in on this very specific thing. I want to give you guys an opportunity to ask the questions you want to ask. So later on this week, I'm going to be having on a fundamentalist Christian who likes to go hunting. And we're going to talk about theology, Christianity, gun rights. Oh, he's an Australian too, so it should be really fun. But you guys are welcome to field any questions to him that you have. Doesn't matter how absurd. If you act retarded, he'll probably make fun of you, but you can field any questions you want. So, don't forget to stay tuned for that. I'll put out an announcement soon. But with that said, get your questions in. You can send them in to my Twitter. You can message me on YouTube, or you can simply leave your questions in the comment section if you can't attend it live, and I'll make sure that they get asked. But Twitter would be best. That's twitter.com/find_redemption. Make sure you follow me there, and check it out. So enjoy the video. See you guys.
We are also going to have to make sure that we think about the risks we are willing to take by being so lax in how we make very powerful firearms available to people in this country.
And that is especially true when it comes to assault weapons like those used in Orlando and San Bernardino.
Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. We're back with another brand new video. It's Redemption here. Today I want to spend a little bit more time talking about the Orlando situation, but not about Omar Mateen or the victims or any of these other things. I want to spend a little time talking about the way that our politicians discuss firearms. I want to talk about the way that they present and represent firearms to the greater country, and how that plays a part in affecting our policy, and whether or not they're being genuine or honest about the things that they say.
What kind of charges could she now face? Eric Guster is here, criminal defense attorney. She took him to buy ammo and the holster, apparently. She knew that he was potentially going to do this. She may have been with him on scouting visits to the Pulse and even to Disney World. What happens to her?
She should be arrested. If she knew that he was going to do this and aided and abetted him in it, and that is the key, if she promoted his actions, for example, there are reports that we're receiving that she went in on the scouting reports. That is someone who's aiding and abetting. She went with him to buy ammo. That's aiding and abetting. And if she planned this and knew about it and knew exactly what he's going to do, even a slight idea of what he's going to do, she should be charged with conspiracy.
Okay, so conspiracy. What would she face?
She would face charges, a range of charges, because she could face a count for each person who was shot. And also, in addition to just conspiracy, she could be charged with murder, because if you aid and abet someone in planning a murder, you are just as guilty of doing it yourself. Because if she went to buy those bullets, if she scouted those places out, she's guilty.
Okay, let's take a listen to the owner of the St. Lucie Shooting Center, where apparently Mateen bought the ammunition. Here's Edward Henson.
An evil person came in here and they legally purchased 2 firearms from us. And if he hadn't purchased them from us, I'm sure he would have gotten them from another local gun store in the area. This man held multiple security licenses. He had an armed and an unarmed license. He passed the background check that every single person that purchases a firearm in the state of Florida undergoes.
Now up on screen we have 2 different firearms. One of them is the type of firearm used in the Orlando shooting. The other is a similar type firearm that I'm using for a very specific purpose. Alright, so in the top right you're going to see a Sig Sauer MCX. This is a common, widely available firearm, available for purchase in just about any place in the United States. it's classified as a sporting rifle. It has been touted repeatedly by the politicians and by the left as being a assault rifle. In the bottom, just below me, is a firearm made by Ruger known as the Mini 14. Now, they both fire similar rounds. Now, I'm using the Mini 14 for a very specific reason, okay? Because it's been used in Congress to compare the AR-15 with another similar firearm. So, the firearm's trigger mechanism functions similar in both, as well as in the standard AR-15 made by Colt or made by any of the 20 manufacturers that make that firearm. Now, they are different. It's very important to note they're different, okay? The AR-15 platform requires a buffer spring, which would go, well, in this case, the MCX has a folding skeleton stock where there is no buffer spring. So you can see that it's not the same mechanism as an AR-15. However, they all have very similar styles of functioning. Now, if you were to take the AR-15, the 6-hour MCX, and the Ruger Mini 14 and put them all next to each other, they have a pretty similar action. They have a similar trigger mechanism. They all fire the same caliber round. They all have about the same rate of fire, and they all are available in both 10, 15, 30, and high-capacity magazines, depending on which part of the country you're in. So, why is it that the AR-15 or platforms that look similar to the AR-15 get so much attention? Why is it that politicians have had such a hard-on for banning that platform of weapon? Well, it's very simple. If you look at the bottom, the Ruger Mini 14 looks a lot like a hunting rifle. In fact, it was designed as a guard rifle for prisons, and is widely used for that. Yeah, to this day in many prisons across the country. So the guards in the guard towers, if the prison happens to have guard towers, will have one of these, and this is for the obvious reasons of disabling or stopping high-risk offenders from escaping prison. Now, it's also widely used in the civilian market for hunting, sport shooting, target practice, teaching, you name it. All right, it's used for all kinds of purposes. Same with the one in the top right. Sporting rifle. These are not assault rifles. They're not assault rifles. I mean, you really got to do your reading. And the politicians, I have a hard time believing that they don't know what the hell they're talking about, which means that they're fucking lying to you. Plain and simple. So, you've got one rifle that they've never tried to go after, never tried to ban, and another rifle that they have. We kind of know why, but are you okay with that? Is that acceptable to you? Now, if you're not very familiar with firearms and you're asking, well, with Redemption, what the hell is the difference? It looks a lot like a weapon that the military would use. Well, we'll get to that right now. Our journey to find out the difference between an assault rifle and a sporting rifle starts with the ammunition that we fire. Now, in the little photo to the bottom right, you will see on the top is a .223 Remington cartridge, and just below that is a 5.56 by 45 millimeter military cartridge. Well, what is the difference? There are many, many, many differences. In order to understand those differences, we first have to talk about Sammy's spec, okay? Now, I don't have mine with me. I think it's in the garage with the other reloading gear. All of my reloading equipment is in sort of a state of transition because I'm setting it up where my bench in the garage will be used for casting and creating small caliber ammunition for handguns and so forth. And then the reloading bench will be that stainless steel bench behind me. However, I haven't transferred them in because there's this big long process of setting up a quick detachment system so that I can modularize my bench. I don't want to have I don't want my reloading press equipment to be permanently affixed to the bench at all times, because I also want to do gunsmithing and have a stationary place to actually clean my guns. It used to be that I just had to do it at the desk, which is you get gun oil everywhere. It's just a mess, and it's not really great for the desk. So, just to make things easier, I bought myself a bench to do it on. Well, I haven't gotten to that yet, so everything's in a state of flux. So I'm sorry I don't have the book with me. I don't feel like going to the garage because it's probably like 1,000,000,000 degrees outside. Anyway, that said, for a reloader, somebody like me who reloads their own ammunition, a reloading manual is our Bible, okay? You have to pay attention to it, because if you don't, you can create ammunition that you can severely injure yourself with. It's very important. It's very important to make sure that you get the powder charges correct, that you properly size your shells, and that you're obviously using the proper ammunition and safe techniques. So, anyway, that said, anytime somebody's reloading ammunition or any ammunition you buy, that ammunition adheres to a very strict code of specifications known as SAMI spec. That's SAMMI or SAAMI, can't remember which, but it's known as SAMI spec. Now, that SAMI spec goes everything from like the diameter of the cartridge at the base, the diameter of the cartridge at the what's known as the throat. That's the skinny part right where the projectile is at, or even the angle of what's known as the neck. That's the angle part where it angles down into the throat of the casing. So these specifications are very, very, very strict adhered, and even the insurance companies for the ammunition manufacturers rely upon the companies to meet these strict criteria. Otherwise, people get hurt. And when you hear about somebody's firearm exploding, blah, 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 usually it's somebody screwed up reloading and, they get hurt. But SAMI spec is there to keep us all safe and make sure that our ammunition meets quality guidelines. However, what's the difference? Okay, so 223 and 556 have an effectively identical projectile. The projectile itself looks almost the same. In fact, in many ways it is the same, though there are many different size and weights, or what is referred to as grain amounts. So projectiles are measured in grains. If you have ever measured in grains, then you've probably been dealing with either reloading or drugs. So that said, you can get 223, 556 rounds, projectiles. That's just the bullet for reloading, in probably about 5 different grain weights. However, same bullet, and one can go in either firearm. Now, the difference is in the casing. But not just in the casing, but what's inside the casing. So, the casing on the 556 is a little bit wider. It's not exactly the same. The casing on the 556 also carries a lot more of a projectile charge, or powder charge. So you see pressure differentials. I believe the 556 is somewhere around 2/3 more pressure at the muzzle than the 223. What does all this mean? To break this down for somebody in the simplest terms possible, what this means is the 223 is a much, 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 much weaker round. Well, again, you got to go back and ask yourself, well, what was the 223 used for? Well, 223 is a varminting round. It's made for shooting squirrels, raccoons, coyotes, small game, small varmints. That's what it was engineered for. And sport shooting. It's not made for killing people. It's not made for assault weapons. Assault weapons don't use 223. 223 is not an effective round for warfare or for combat. It's just not. Now in the military, I carried an M16A2 service rifle. It's since been replaced by the M4 service rifle, which is just a bullpup. Actually, it's not really a bullpup. It's just a shorter version. It's a condensed version of the M16A2. However, functionally, mechanically, they are the same. They fire a 556 cartridge. This is a cartridge that is better for combat. It's still a pretty weak round for combat. Good rounds for combat, you start getting into 7.62 by 39 and so forth. They're good rounds for combat, for killing potential anyway. 223, 556, not really all that great, but the 556 is a military round. Can you get the military round? Can you get the rifle chambered in the military round? Absolutely yes. It does exist. You can reload your own ammunition, you can buy surplus, you can get in the military round. However, the AR-15 is almost always chambered in 223. The reason for this is price, okay? Because the 5.56 barrel has to withstand much, much higher pressures. It's not as common. Not as many people want to spend the money to get the 5.56 cartridge because the benefits for somebody who's sports shooting just aren't that great. It's not that great of a difference. It's not enough for it to matter because you're paying $200, $300, $400, $500 more for the 5.56 barrel, and your ammunition costs you more on top of that. So most people just elect to get the 223. In my case, I'm building an AR-15, and I'm electing to get the 223. I don't need the 5.56. I have other larger caliber rifles that, shoot better rounds anyway. The 5.5 or the 223 AR-15 that I'm building is purely for sporting purposes. So anyway, that's the difference between the ammunition, and it is a big enough difference to matter because the 223 is just not a military round. Same with when you look at the difference between 308 and 30-06, same size projectile, but the 308 is a military NATO round and the 30-06 is not. It's a large game hunting round. So it is important to note those differences. They do matter. Moving on to the next thing, the other big issue here is about magazines, right? They talk about magazine capacity, right? And it's sort of funny to watch how many people fall for this because the media has redefined all kinds of terms based on firearms, things that they know nothing about. It's astonishing, and people just go, okay. So on the right, we have a 30-round magazine, and on the left, we have a double drum magazine. It's either 150 or a 200-round magazine. Anyways, 100 or more rounds, right? One is a high-capacity magazine. One is what's known as a standard capacity magazine. So, the standard capacity rifle magazine, as it's pertained to in military terms, was always a 30-round magazine. Okay? That's standard capacity. Anything more than that is high capacity, unless it's the standard magazine for the weapon. So, the P90, for example, which is a European bullpup design, comes with a standard 50-round magazine. That's a standard capacity magazine for that firearm, and it has a lot to do with the size of the magazine, the way that the rifle's designed. The magazine size is inherent to the design of the magazine. You would have to, or to the rifle, you would have to see it to understand. But it is inherently a 50-round magazine, and that's standard capacity. For an AR-15 or an M16 or an M4 service rifle or M16A1 or any of those platforms, a standard capacity magazine is 30 rounds. Anything less than that is half capacity. It's a half mag. 15-round mag is a half mag. A 10-round mag is a third mag. It's not a full magazine. It's not a standard capacity magazine. A 30-round magazine is not a high-capacity magazine. Now, the picture on the left, bottom below me, is a dual drum magazine. That is a high-capacity magazine. Now, that is legal in some places, not legal where I'm at, and I don't want to get into a big discussion about whether or not we need it. Because whether or not we need something doesn't dictate whether or not we should be allowed to have it. Do I think it has any significant use? Well, I do, because if you ever spent a day shooting, and I mean a long day shooting, 5 or 6 hours, you'll discover that reloading magazines constantly is a big giant pain in the ass. So having a magazine that, like this drum magazine, which loads quickly and easily, is preferable, because you go out shooting 100 rounds, you load the magazine one time, and when you're out, you're out. Does it have some implications? Sure, it does. Just like anything else, owning cars has a lot of positive implications, but it also means that a lot of people are going to die to hit and runs, car accidents, DUIs, snafus, not paying attention, talking on your cell phone, texting and driving, eating and driving, putting on your makeup and driving, reading a book and driving, and in some cases, drinking a tall can while driving. These things happen. So, now they don't happen to me, but they happen to some people. Should we go out banning all guns or all cars because of that? I don't think so. And I don't think it would ever fly. I don't even think anyone would ever even entertain that idea. However, regardless of that fact, living in the state I live in, you have a 1 in 77 chance of dying in your lifetime due to a car accident, and only 1 in half a million chance of ever being shot. And yet, it's one of the strictest gun control states in the country. And trust me, the fact that it's so unlikely that you'll get shot has nothing to do with the laws. It has to do with the fact that people here just don't even know how to use guns. Anyway, that said, moving on, one of the most important functions of an assault rifle that the AR-15 does not have, or that the Sig Sauer MCX does not have, is that in order for a firearm to meet the criteria of an assault rifle, it needs to bear a caliber that is sufficient for the ending of human life. It needs to be sufficient for warfare. 223 does not meet that criteria. The second most important thing is its fire capability. So, your AR-15 in this country, average, most states, without any special FFLs or federal firearms licensing, fire semi-automatic only. Now, manufacturer and the model as well. The AR-15 does not have that capability. It has a safe mode and a semi-automatic fire mode, and therefore cannot be an assault rifle. It's not designed for assaulting anything. It's designed for sport shooting and varmint hunting at most. Another criteria for an assault rifle is for it to be fully automatic or have a fully automatic function, such as the Kalashnikov AK-47 by Russian design is a weapon that has a fully automatic function. So it has safe, semi-automatic, and full auto. It meets the criteria as an assault rifle. However, the AR-15 does not. The Sig Sauer MCX does not. So, what are they really after? Are they after your assault rifle, or are they after your sporting rifle? And if they're after your sporting rifle, you have to ask yourself why. Is this really about the violence that others choose to inflict, or is it about control over you? Simple question.